Modern retailers need every financial advantage to compete with online and win. New retail profits can be driven by better serving the customers you already have. Let PRN show you how to capture your fair share of digital marketing dollars from the $1 trillion global marketing spend. Smart retail digital networks from PRN help you monetize the aisle and win the day. To learn more, go to prn.com today. That's PRN.
The church goes outside and she throws herself into civil rights.
Well, but of course, the civil rights movement was built on an enormous amount of participation from clergy of all sorts.
So I understand. I can
go.
see it today here in the 21st century.
Set the trap, right?
But at the time, it was, why not make money, Mahalia Jackson?
Exactly. I mean, Mahalia was devoted. She came up from the South, and she was a great example of the conflict between the old established black neighborhoods of Chicago and what she represented coming up from Louisiana, from New Orleans, which was the Holiness Church. So there were these very staid, musical performances, and here came Mahalia singing, swaying, lifting up her skirt, and just bringing this whole kind of exuberance of the South to African-American population in the North. And she was offered, because she was so popular, a role to audition for a role in a show called The Swing Mikado, which was a WPA show in the late 30s, which was going to be a kind of a black version of Gilbert and Sullivan. And she doesn't think she's going to get it. She's scared. And it's the Depression. There's not a lot of money. So her husband kind of cajoles her into going, and she goes up there and doesn't have the right sheet music, and she sings, and she just blows everyone away. And yes, she turns away and says, I will never do. But at the same time, I mean, I want to provide 360 degrees on everybody in this book. And so Mahalia, as much as she grasps this kind of core divinity and brings a black presence to mainstream white media, she likes money. She is not necessarily a wonderful person to everyone she meets. Her path to the city of God is a rocky one at times, but she also provides an important role with her. She is a visible, strong, and dignified black presence in the white media in the 50s, and I think that import cannot be, taken away from her.
And it was when Martin Luther King and others, Ralph Abernathy, meet her in the civil rights movement that they have a centerpiece for the 63 march that's after your book. So I want to go to another political force. Studs Terkel comes out of the WPA.
I think Studs would be the first person to say he was never a political force. He was he's kind of the connecting tissue between so many things, but him being a kind of convincing anybody to flip a ballot switch one way or the other. I mean, he has no power. He is that's almost what kept him pure. I looked for crummy things about everybody in this book because I was resolved to make sure that I wanted to be honest. Chicago's a no BS place, and I said, all right, I'm going to be honest about everybody here. So Nelson Algren, a man whose work I love. And I'm just saying, but I really wanted to give
Studs
a round
Terkel,
picture.
he's facing
Studs was the one guy I could not find anything bad to say.
All right, let me interpret my reading of this. He's facing NBC. You want to continue your show? Fine. All you have to do is sign this document and say that you're not a lefty. We don't have to doubt you, that we're not going to find that senator from Wisconsin showing up on our doorstep.
Right, exactly.
And he refuses. He throws the man out of his office.
He uses a bad word.
That's politics. That's politics. He asserts a kind of what you'd have to say knight-errant purity about his past and his denunciation of people who have been betrayed or are betraying them. Right. He refuses. No. He could have been. How big could he have been if he'd come to New York and done a show like he did in Chicago, as big as he wanted to be?
He invented a new kind of radio, which was these kind of blurring
Afterwards, he got to radio, but he was
well,
TV before that, right?
He started in radio. No. He had a show. He brings Mahalia on a show he does called the Wax Museum in 46 or so, where he puts on bits of, Broadway shows and opera and just kind of mixes it all up.
Studs Place, he was the bartender.
Well, that's also Studs does a lot in Chicago. He's also one of the people that kind of Johnny Appleseed of folk music, going around while he's, as he says, gray listed during that period.
Right.
He's going around with Lead Belly and Win Strakey and doing folk music.
The reason I want to spend time with Studs Terkel is because now television. I did not know before your book, Tom, that television, though I thought of it entirely as a New York City entity, had all these, what you'd have to say, labs in Chicago.
Right.
The coaxial cable connects New York to Chicago, and all of a sudden, Studs Terkel's one of them, shows up with a TV show concept.
Right.
The one that steals the book, however, is Kukla,
Fran and Ollie. Yeah. I mean,
now, this is to an older generation. You all have YouTube. Go to the YouTube, write up Kukla, Kukla. That's all you need, Fran and Ollie, and enjoy yourself, because this was a puppet show. It was old when I was a child.
Right.
And I'm an older, middle-aged American. But it is joy to discover that it was made up entirely of people. The puppeteer and Fran, our nice lady, who had to enter into the fantasy that the puppets were real.
Burr called her the Dorothy in Oz, the Alice in Wonderland figure. She's the human, and Burr was behind there doing Kukla, who's a kind of doll, a little clown figure in a way. Ollie, who's a dragon. And there's a whole cast of Kuklapolitans, a Dowager Rabbit. There's a whole world.
And they believed it. You had to believe it to be in the show.
And exactly. I mean, they brought in someone once who referred to Ollie as an alligator, and he was fired on the spot. And Burr at first did not really sense that kind of willingness to believe from Fran. So one time he finds her on the stage by herself alone, and he just puts Kukla and Ollie up on the stage, and they start talking to each other about women, or they kind of something to kind of bait her. And and the two of them have this argument. Then they kind of kind of get her going. And then she finally turns to him and jumps into this argument with the two puppets. And she realizes, at that moment, she's completely entered Burr's world and really the reality of Kukla.
Burr Tillstrom is the man, the genius's name, and that's one of the pieces of The Third Coast, when Chicago built the American dream. Thomas Dyge is the author. When we come back, that race riot breaks out into a national crime. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.